And now, you're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope everyone's having a good week. Bit of an uneventful week so far, but hey, just getting revved up. The scouting combine's coming in. It's still exciting. We're on our way to the NFL draft. The offseason's getting ramped up. There's already been a couple of little bits of Bucs news that we'll get into. Not great news, but still news nonetheless. But we can't get into it without introducing everybody. First, we'll start with Musab Tariq. Say hello. Say what's up to the people. Say how you feeling. Just, introduce yourself, brother.
Absolutely. What's going on, Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans? Always a pleasure to be here. Yes, the off season is over, but always happy to talk about some Tampa Bay football and what's going on in the off season as well. There's a lot of moves needed to be made / are being made all throughout the league, and especially with the whole Brady retirement. I think it's time to really reflect as to how are we going to approach this off season. What are we going to be looking like during this regular season? But that being said, I'm going to pass the mic on to the one and only Zach Blaine. What's going on, Zach? How we doing?
Oh, we're doing fantastic. Got to spend some time with family this evening, so it's been good. And I mean, Carter nailed it on the head. Some not so great Bucs news, but some news at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not super fun to talk about this kind of stuff because it's the Bucs losing players, but they're so over the cap that they're gonna continue to do this. This is gonna be the first of many. But I gotta tell you guys, I'm a little disappointed. I missed the memo on the backwards hat thing. My bad. But then again, any hat that I have, it never fits my big head, so it wouldn't matter. But anyways, let's get into it. First of all, the big one was Leonard Fournette is going to be cut. It's a tough one. Playoff Lenny. He was really a big part of these Super Bowl runs or these playoff runs. Obviously, the running back room is going to look very different than it was these past 3 years with Leonard Fournette back there. So where does this leave the running back room? I mean, they got Rachaad White and I believe Keyshawn Vaughn still under contract, but man, it's thin. It's Rachaad White, and I don't think there's enough faith in Keyshawn Vaughn to really justify him being the number 2, quote unquote. Zach, we'll start with you. Where do you look at this running back room? I mean, where do we go from here if we're the Bucs?
Yeah, I mean, I think thin is the perfect word for it. It's like you said, we've got Rachaad White and Keyshawn Vaughn, and out of those two, like none of them are really experienced. Obviously, that Rachaad White had some time last year, but he was never the go-to lead back. And Keyshawn Vaughn, even though he's been in the league for this is his 3rd year now. He's they don't trust him or something because he hasn't had much playing time, which is sad because I think he could be very good. But yeah, I think we're very, very thin, and I expect to see at least one veteran or proven rusher added to the backfield before the season starts.
Right. And yeah, how about you, Musab? Are you a little more optimistic, or are you kind of doom and gloom like me and Zach about this running back room?
Oh, I'm as of right now, I'm very doom and gloom. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, listen, man, it's hard to lose someone like playoff Lenny, regular season Lenny. Leonard Fournette. The guy balled out in the past couple of years. This past season, it was looking a little You know what I'm saying? I do have to say though, I think that however we snag Rachaad White, I think was a good pick for those are the kind of picks that you look back and you say, hey, listen, is this guy the next Christian McCaffrey or something like that? I don't know, but I'll tell you this, yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. But looking at our running back room right now, gentlemen, it's Keyshawn Vaughn and Rachaad White. Gio Bernard days is probably also over as well. So for that reason, I mean, yeah, the only reason I'm thinking is I'm doom and gloom is because as of right now, this is all we got. I'm looking at someone in the draft, and that's really about it, though. I don't think that Keyshawn Vaughn is going to be that number 2 guy, and he shouldn't be that number 2 guy. If he is, he is. I guess that's up to the coaching staff. But when you've had 3 or 4 years into the season, being an NFL player, you ought to show you ought to show the fans something. You ought to show the coaching staff something. So there's times that he helps us out, but he is just a pretty certain, a little bit more strict, role player. I'm looking for someone to back up Rashad White. Successful teams, I feel like, have a running back duo, and this Keyshawn Vaughn and Rashad White duo is not going to work out. We need someone else.
For sure. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Zach could agree as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn and Rashad White. Rashad White, like you said, looking back, I was very critical of the pick in the third round. And, he had a pretty good year. He had a pretty good rookie year. And now he's certainly going to have to take a big step forward with Leonard Fournette leaving. And in hindsight, it was like Musab said, it was a very solid pick because of the need. Now they can maybe wait until the later, like 6th or 7th round and maybe pick up, just kind of a depth piece at the running back position.
So that means, though, that you have to have faith in Rashad White being the lead back.
Right, and that brings me to my next point. Yeah, that was you're reading my mind, Zach. Yeah, I mean, how do y'all feel about that, Musab? I mean, it sounds like you're relatively confident in Rashad White being able to step up and be that number one guy. I mean, am I wrong, or are you maybe looking at him more of like a third down scat back kind of guy? How are we feeling about Rashad White's role on this team moving forward?
I'll be honest with you, Carter and Zach. I'm thinking, with the kind of cap space we have at the moment, we're going to have to count on him. But again, I'm still thinking he's not some guy who's just going to take over the show immediately. If he does, he does. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome for me. I'm thinking 60-40, towards the beginning of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is sharing, some loads with whoever we get, So that's kind of the big question is, Carter and Zach, do you think we're actually going to make some running back kind of free agency move, or we're just going to wait for we're going to wait for the draft and, we do our best to, try to snag someone in the later rounds? Because, yes, it is a priority, but I don't know if it's a first round kind of priority. You know what I'm saying? So, where's y'all's heads at with that?
So I personally, I don't know how to feel about it yet, because I don't know that I have faith in Rashad White being a 3-down back. And it's nothing against him. I think that he's a very good running back, but I think he plays a better role as a change of pace running back. So I see maybe potentially needing a starter. And I think in my eyes, there's one very clear starter in the draft. Young man out of Texas.
No.
And I'm very high on him. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know that he's the most important need on the team right now, but I do think that if he's around and we can maybe trade up, not out of 19, we keep 19 and then maybe trade back into towards the end of the first round to get that extra year on Robinson, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But yeah, I don't know what we have or what we could pay somebody in free agency that's going to make sense for us as opposed to drafting someone whatever round we do.
Right, and that's a great point. I mean, they're strung by the cap problems.
Yeah,
hamstrung. I don't know what the proper term is, but man, Bashawn Robinson in the first round would break my heart. I don't think I could stomach that. A running back in the first round hasn't worked out for the past decade. It seems like winning football teams just don't draft running backs in the first round anymore. Kansas City managed to skate by drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire because, they have freaking Patrick Mahomes. The Bucs, unfortunately, don't have Patrick Mahomes. But I'm with you. Bashawn Robinson, fantastic player. And he's going to be an amazing running back in the NFL. Whenever, we discuss the caliber of player or draft selections and all that, it has less to do with the talent of the player and more to do with just the team need and the draft selection. So I don't want anyone to think I'm taking a dump on Bashawn Robinson as a player. Fantastic running back, and he's going to be really, really good. But I just think that, even if they draft him, the offensive line is awful, atrocious, terrible. They were the worst rushing team in the NFL last year with Leonard Fournette. So, even if they draft Bashawn Robinson, what's he going to do if there's no holes to hit, if there's no space, then, especially with Trask at quarterback, good Lord, teams are going to be load the box.
My problem with that though is like I've been looking at it, and I don't think that there's going to be an offensive lineman available for us worthy of, like, let's say that 19th pick. I think there's a lot towards the top of the draft. Not a lot, but there's quite a few at the top of the draft. And I feel like there's kind of a fall off after like pick 15 of talent, I should say, or ceiling for some players.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. You know, they're kind of in a difficult position. I remember, I think OJ Howard was drafted around this spot a while back. I think it was at 18 or something, and the Bucs are in the same kind of awkward, what do we do here position? And we saw how that turned out. So
I think he could have been so good. I think injuries and just lack of
opportunity
got him. Yeah.
Right. Well, regardless, it is a tough spot. Musa, maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you're more with Zach. How do you feel about maybe drafting Bijan Robinson in the first round, or any running back in general in the first round?
It's a little risky in the first round. I gotta say this,
right?
Being an organization, it's one thing. You mentioned it already, Carter. It's one thing if the Kansas City Chiefs, you already got Patty Mahomes and all that. You're drafting someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we got to be a little bit careful. I mean, I like the guy too. It's not something I'm super against, but it's just that I don't think that we've had very successful drafts. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's like one or two guys recently that I'm like, okay, this guy was like, I'm very happy we picked him up. Looking back at people like Tristan Wirfs or Devin White or whatever, even Rashad White. But it's hard to say, oh, wow, man, look at us. We got like a lot of guys in that draft who turned out to be pretty good. First rounder, it's, oh, my God. I think it's just too hard to right now narrow down, or even think, for me personally, we ought to snag a running back in the first round. That's not the biggest priority. I think we can snag a hidden gem. I'm looking for a hidden gem, maybe more along the lines of this running back situation. We do need someone good, but first round is just too soon for me.
Let me ask you this then. What do you think the higher odds are, drafting a first round running back who performs or finding a hidden gem?
I don't know.
I feel like it's the same.
I don't know.
Same odds. So it kind of feels like unless someone like a Christian Gonzalez or a Joey Porter Jr. fall down to us, I don't see why we shouldn't risk it with a guy like Robinson, who I think is going to be very, very good. If we don't plan on taking a quarterback in the first round, like, unless someone I
don't want to take a quarterback in the first round.
Well,
either.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, unless like Bryce Young, something crazy happens and he falls to us, like, if we're not taking that quarterback in the first round, there's other positions that can play out in later rounds, in my opinion, who have been more successful in later rounds.
Man, but I gotta say, I mean, like I said, it's just successful teams aren't built around a first round running back, because the level, like the differential between a first round running back and say a third or a fourth round running back is much slimmer than the difference between a first round cornerback or a first round left tackle and a third or a fourth round left tackle, because you can find a really solid running back in pretty much any round of the draft. You can't find a good corner or a good tackle.
I totally agree with that.
Right.
My rebuttal to that, I guess, is if there's not a cornerback, like I said, like in my mind, there's three cornerbacks really in the first round, or at 19 that I would be comfortable taking.
Right.
And then like other mock drafts, I'm seeing us taking edge rushers. I think it's a need, but I think that we have the ability to just get better on the edge, because we do have some young guys on the edge, in my opinion.
I mean, yes, sure, but
you got Logan Hall, who I think could improve.
Sure.
I mean, so in my mind, like, we've got the ability to get better at edge, and we have cornerbacks that aren't necessarily first round cornerbacks that are doing solid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, for sure, right? But I don't know. It's a tough proposition for me to say that the Bucs are rebuilding. They're building this roster from the ground up, and you start with a running back.
What round was Derrick Henry taking it? Like, that's a serious question. I really don't know. He's a second rounder. Yeah. Like, that was like not a smart ass question. I really didn't know that.
Nick Chubb was a second. Dalvin
Nick Chubb
Cook
was a second rounder.
Yep, Nick Chubb.
Would not
Dalvin
guess
Cook
that.
was a second rounder. Alvin Kamara was a third rounder. The only first rounders that are really, really good backs are really Saquon and Christian McCaffrey. Other than that,
Zeke when he's on, I gotta
he was getting
that.
outplayed by Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard's a stud. He was a steal. So
Right.
Tony Pollard, he's a stud.
But regardless, the number of running backs that are good that weren't drafted in the first round far outweigh the number of running backs because Leonard Fournette was a first round pick, Ezekiel Elliott was a first round pick, and we can disagree about Zeke, but we can at least agree that he's not better than Tony Pollard. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
Right, and Tony Pollard wasn't a first round pick, so we're kind of getting a little into other.
That raises kind of a good question. It's sort of on topic, not really Bucs related, but just draft related in general. Do you think that drafting somebody do you think that it actually increases your level of play, like being drafted in a later round as, say, a running back? Or do you think that it's just something that, no one really scouted him right?
Musab, you feel free to chime in on this one first.
I mean, the way you just said it makes me feel like I'm some NCAA scout or something. Go ahead, Musab, NFL scout Musab, chime in. No, I'm messing with you. With that being said, I think it plays a role, but I just think that as time goes on, maybe in the beginning of the season, I think that's exactly whatever you just said right now, Zach. But I'm thinking that towards the mid-season. If you're a later round pick and you're actually doing really well during practice and whatever opportunity you get, you ought to actually get some some kind of idea that, hey, listen, I might get bumped up, and I feel like the coaches will be noticing as well. But it does play a role. But it also makes
more drive.
It also makes me think all the pressure on you. Just imagine if you're a first round cornerback, you're joining a team like the Buccaneers who are going through their own changes. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing again. Yeah, you're on the Chiefs or something like that. Oh, it's okay. We got Patty Mahomes and the rest of the boys, Super Bowl champions. It's okay if you're like a mediocre cornerback. But right now, we need the best. And to make it to the big leagues, all eyes are on you. The chip's on your shoulder right now. You have to be proving people wrong. So that's kind of where I stand right now, actually, with the whole draft situation. But Carter, go ahead and chime in as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, they have a huge chip on their shoulder if they're on the later rounds, and if they're in the middle of the season and they're playing well, they're going to get rewarded for it, especially in practice. It's kind of an interesting thing, like you mentioned, the pressure of the early round draft picks. A team doesn't want to fudge those picks. They don't want to screw that up, so they're going to give you plenty of opportunities, but that also means that you better start producing because they just spent this big draft selection on you. So yeah, it's a delicate balance, but because if they're drafting you that high, there's a reason for it. It means that they're far more talented for the most part than the later round draft picks. So, it's a delicate balance. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting moving forward to see what the Bucs do with this running back room. Overall, I think we've had some great discussions about it. But regardless, so Zach thinks of Bijan Robinson as maybe the premier pick. Are there any other guys that you can think of that maybe you'd be okay with the Bucs taking in 5th, 6th, or 7th round? Maybe a day 3 draft pick. Zach, we'll start with you since you seem to be gung ho about the Bucs taking a running back.
So. Okay, I feel like I've got to reiterate. I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I'm just saying I'm very open to that happening. Right. I haven't looked very far into the running back depth of this draft. Right. I know there's a few top guys, and I feel like there's another gap between them. But I haven't really looked very much further than Bijan Robinson right now because I wasn't sure if we were going to lose Lenny yet. I kind of expected it, but in my head, I was kind of hoping it didn't happen just because I like him. But so I haven't really done very much research into the draft class for running backs yet.
Yeah, no, I feel you. It was a tough thing. I think some of us were kind of expecting it, but kind of like, oh, maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true. But then it's
true.
I feel you. But, it's tough because it was only a $3.5 million savings. for the cap, but he probably didn't want to be involved with a rebuilding process, and you can't really blame him.
I mean, and he openly came out and said that he said that he was more worried about winning, and that Brady retiring definitely played a role in his request to be released.
Yeah, it was definitely a mutual thing. It seemed like.
Yeah.
We saw. How about you? Are there any guys? I mean, just to kind of throw some names out there for myself. Every time I do one of those PFF mock draft things, I know we all have fun doing them. I always pick Kenny McIntosh in the 6th or 7th round because he's a Georgia guy. I mean, Georgia guys are always super successful. And he's just a really good pass catcher. Roshan Johnson's the 2nd running back out of Texas, but I mean, he's looking pretty darn good too. Are there any guys, Musab, that maybe you thought of that maybe you think, oh, well, maybe the Bucs take a flyer on him in the 6th or 7th round?
6th or 7th round, I will say, yeah, that's fine if we still have him. But I'm kind of leaning towards 4th and 5th round, more 5th. A little bit of 4th if we decide to be a little bit more ballsy or something like that. But for me, I'm thinking someone like Eric Gray from Oklahoma. I'm not going to act like I'm some NCAA scout or NFL scout like Carter thought I was. What I will say is I was looking around because, I was looking at the rankings and all that. I don't think that we're going to get, like the 1st or 2nd guy in these rankings clearly. So I'm kind of, like I was getting an idea, where we're kind of at, if I'm thinking 4th or 5th round. And he is, he's in that ballpark right there. Eric Gray from Oklahoma. All I like, honestly, is I think that, he's come from a big school, huge program. He's got a big burst. And also he just seems kind of just like he's a little bulldog or something. He's just running over guys, or he just doesn't go down as much as you think he would. He keeps on going and going. He grinds out the yards. I think that he's very agile as well. He's shifty. That's just my kind of hot take right there. Just because I think he is a potential kind of 2nd stringer or whatever. It's time for him to kind of just learn behind the ropes of Rachaad White and Keyshawn Vaughn as well, I guess. But I don't know. That's really about it, though. I have to say, I don't think that he's going to save our team, or he's going to be like, oh, my God, Rachaad White and Eric Gray, my God, they saved Tampa Bay this season. No, they're not going to. I don't know who's going to save them, honestly. I don't think anyone's going to be saved this year, to be honest, all right? It's a development year, and it's time to kind of, just settle back a little bit and just, think about, okay, well, listen, we have some recalibrating to do. Let's actually try to find, the best guys who have a long-term career and who can, keep on showing consistency. I like the guy, but I have to say the biggest thing, and with every single pick, I have to say is it's a whole different ballpark in the NFL. So my only issue is I just hope that he can adjust to the NFL game, just because, this is an NCAA, especially looking at the conference they're in. I feel like barely anyone plays defense or whatever. What are they? They're Big 12.
Yeah,
Big 12. Yep.
Yeah, Big 12. I don't know. I just don't see anything big coming out of the defensive wise on the Big 12. I feel like people kind of make fun of the Big 12 because of their lack of defense. I remember when Baker Mayfield was on the Oklahoma Sooners as well. People were making fun of the whole league or the whole conference because okay, that's fine. Yeah, Baker's looking hot because no one plays defense. All these quarterbacks look good because nobody be playing defense. So we'll see how it goes in the big leagues. But I like Eric Gray, and I do like another guy, but I really do want to see where y'all heads at as well. But Eric Gray is my number one kind of choice with the running back situation, 4th, 5th round, more like 5th round.
For sure. Yeah, I liked Eric Gray too. Very slippery. He started out at Tennessee and then moved to Oklahoma. Big 12 defenses are ass, straightforward. Oklahoma went to that semifinal game and gave up 63 to Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers. That's all I'm going to say. But anyways, I digress. You know who doesn't give up 63 points to the LSU Tigers in the semifinals? The RBLR shop. That doesn't.
Oh my God.
To the LSU Tigers because it's a clothing item, so they can't give up points because it's not. Anyways, check it out. They got 10% off everything if you use the promo codes Cannon CANNONS. It's shop.rblrsports.com. You looking to bring back the devil, or are you just looking for some Lightning gear, Rowdies, Bucs, whatever you're looking for, we got it. So definitely check it out.
And may I chime in? I'll tell you this, whenever you're on vacation or whatever, you're thinking about, I need a whole lineup for my, wardrobe or whatever. I got 5 days in Las Vegas or 5 days in the Bahamas. I'll tell you this, the first rounder, aka the first day, you best believe you should be RBLR gear, letting these people know who you are and what you rep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, got to rep the squad, got to rep the city of Tampa. RBLR Sports is where it's at. So definitely check that stuff out. If you just want to support the podcast too, got to do it. So moving on, after that shameless self plug, another little piece of information, another little piece of news is that Donovan Smith is more than likely going to get cut this offseason by the Bucs as well. Thank goodness. He has been one of the worst left tackles in the NFL over the past year. So it's definitely, kind of time overdue, long overdue. He was going to make way more money than he's worth. But this leaves the Bucs without a starting left tackle. And they have options, fortunately. They have the first-round pick. They have the draft. They could sign a veteran for the veterans minimum, or they could move Tristan Wirfs to left tackle. There has been a lot of discussion about that. I see Zach is maybe not super enthused about that idea.
No. I'm very enthused about that idea, but I'm more enthused about our fans getting 10% off of our
yeah, the CANNONS. Yeah, I mean, that's exciting too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, for sure. Everyone loves to get the promo code. Absolutely. But that's how it be sometimes. Yeah. So I mean, Tristan Wirfs moving to left tackle. How do we feel about it? We'll start with you, brother.
Listen, man, I'm good with it, but looking at the situation right now, because with releasing Donovan Smith, we're going to be kind of 10 million available in the cap space, and I think it was time to come. Honestly, with all due respect, it's not that I ever really hated the guy, but I never loved the guy either. He was kind of just there. You know what I'm saying? He was like, all right, listen, just because you've already been in the system, we don't want to lose you, but if we're going through these rebuilding phases, it's time to just, say, all right, you know what? We wish you all the best because, we are dealing with all these cap spaces, which honestly, I also don't really know too much about. I'm going to be honest with you. So, but what I will say is, this is a priority, for the draft, of course. Whether Wirfs is taking over his role, or we're going somewhere to replace Wirfs' role, or Wirfs is staying, and we're just replacing Donovan Smith. Whatever it is, this is something high priority, and more than anything, especially looking at our quarterback situation as of right now, as of today, it's looking interesting. So it's just going to come down to be a development year, and we need to develop, some successful offensive linemen. We already got some guys, but we still need some people to work on with. I think it's time to play hardball with these veterans, or hardball with just anyone who's been here for over a couple seasons or something. All right, we need to crack down. Are you going to ball out? Are you going to be a consistent backup and just help us out when needed be, or are you just kind of a waste? There's 3 options, so that's where I stand.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not the time to just have bodies on the roster. Although they're going to have to start doing that, unfortunately, because, they can't really afford to sign a lot of guys.
Exactly.
But yeah, I definitely like what you've been saying about Wirfs moving to left tackle. It's definitely an interesting proposition, but like you mentioned with the quarterback situation, that's a great point, because Kyle Trask is pretty much as immobile as Tom Brady was. So they're not going to have this mobile quarterback, extending time, extending plays. So having some good bookend tackles is going to be really important, especially if they really are serious about Trask moving forward. But regardless, if they want to give him the best chance to succeed, I think they need to spend a first-round pick on a tackle. Maybe the draft picks don't work out. Maybe it doesn't slide, so maybe they trade back. But regardless, they need to spend a high-level pick on the position, whether it's left or right. Zach, how about you? Do you think maybe they do transition Wirfs to left tackle, or do you think maybe they keep him at right? How are we feeling about it?
So I am predicting Wirfs to left tackle I feel like I would almost guarantee it. Obviously, I'm in the front office, but I would be shocked if Wirfs is not shifted over to left tackle. that scares me for us because that's going to make him worth more money.
Right.
He's already worth a lot, but left tackles are worth a lot more than right tackles. So realistically, Wirfs moves over to left tackle, has a great game or has a great season, and now he's the highest paid left tackle in the league instead of the right tackle. So I feel like the move is good for us and also bad for us for financial reasons later on down the road. I don't know that, like I said before, I don't know that there's a first-round talent for us at 19. I think if we want first-round talent, we're going to have to trade up, which I don't foresee us doing. Right. So I could see a second or third-round tackle or some sort of offensive lineman. That way they could shift people around that we already have.
Right. That's a great point. 19 is not a great spot to be if you're looking for a tackle in this draft. So that's a really good point. But yeah, I mean, Wirfs moving to left tackle is going to increase his contract value, but I would also argue that thinking really weird long term, it could maybe shift his trade value too, because you give him a season at left tackle and a season for him to kind of, as Musa would say, ball out, play really well, maybe become an all-pro left tackle too. Then you say, all right, well, he's got 2 years left on his deal because he's going to have a 5-year deal in the first round contract. So you say, all right, we're not going to be able to extend him. He's too expensive. So let's get maybe a first rounder for him. Let's maybe get a first and a second for him. So it's interesting.
Well, so either way, though, we're losing Tristan Wirfs, essentially. Either he's costing us a lot of money or we're losing him. So I feel like it just sucks because I want – like he's one of those guys. I've never had like an offensive lineman that I've been like I want to be a lifer with the Bucs or a lifer with any team. But I love Tristan Wirfs, and he's like the first offensive lineman that I've been excited for, if that makes any sense at all. So it just feels like him moving to left tackle is kind of the beginning of the end for us.
Yeah. Musab, how about you? I mean, do you think maybe that the move to left tackle, like Zach is saying, is going to be too much money, too much, whatever you want to call it? Do you think it's maybe a bad move for the Bucs, or are you still really excited for it? You still think that, he's moving to left tackle no matter what?
I'm not like super excited for left tackle. I'm just more along the lines of thinking, well, if this is what's needed to be done, then so be it. I'm kind of just giving it more of a trial year. I think that this is something that you have to analyze a lot more closer than any three of us can, aka you have to be a coach to decide these things to really see how this kind of plays out, because we know who he is exactly. So after some trials at the new position, we'll see how it goes. But I'm fine with it, I guess, if that's what we need to do. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd be happy to also just keep him at where he's at right now and, snag a left tackle, in the draft or something if he looks like, if that person's looking real special. I think this is more of a 50-50 kind of thing. This is just going to be more of a game time decision as we get closer day by day or week by week. I'm open to it, but it's not like I'm saying, oh, my God, thank you so much. Like, this was such a great move or anything either. We'll see how it goes, but it's a whole different kind of experience as well and a whole different adjustment. If it's going to happen, might as well happen now, I guess.
Fair.
Might as well. So might as well. But, that's kind of just where I stand right now. I'm not really putting too much feelings into that.
So a question for you, Carter. What do you think of Wirfs at left tackle? And then if he were to get moved, is there any tackles maybe in free agency? Because I know we haven't really talked about that option yet either. I know that I have one that comes to mind, but I want to hear your take on it.
Well, I think I might be thinking of where your mind's going, because he seems like the type of guy you'd be interested in. Taylor Lewan from the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, I knew it.
The fellow podcaster. I had I'm curious what gave that, but how did you know that?
Well, because he's just, he's one of those Barstool Sports kind of guys, and you seem like a big Barstool Sports guy. I mean, nothing
That's fair.
Nothing really looking too far into it.
That is fair.
He might be a little expensive. He's also apparently considering retirement, but obviously he would be a wonderful, wonderful left tackle to have, a real great veteran presence on the team. He's a super talented left tackle when healthy. He has dealt with his share of injuries, which is part of the reason why he's considering retirement. But yeah, I mean, Taylor Lewan's wonderful. If they stick him at right tackle, if they stick Wirfs at right tackle, then yeah, Lewan would be great. I know there's Kelvin Beachum, who's a bit cheaper. He might be a little bit more realistic for the Bucs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Wirfs is great at right tackle, but why not throw him at left tackle? I mean, whether they got to lose, it either increases his value or they just move him back to right tackle the year after or in midseason.
What if he's terrible and it saves us money in the long run?
Right, exactly. I mean, it could very well turn out that way. But like Musab said, if they are going to move him to left tackle, they probably need to make the decision sooner rather than later, because the transition is not an easy one. It's a lot harder than I think people think, myself included. I mean, I think, oh, it's right tackle to left tackle. It's not that different. No, it's very different. So, I gotta say I'm with Musab on this one. They got to make the decision kind of soon. So I mean, we've focused a lot on Tristan Wirfs and Leonard Fournette. Thankfully, we haven't really talked about. We've mentioned quarterbacks a little bit, but we're gonna have to talk about quarterbacks because it's the Bucs. They don't really, they think Kyle Trask is the future. And Jason Light, he had a press conference at the scouting combine. He was very, very confident in Trask. He's quote very, very excited for Kyle Trask. So it seems kind of like he's got the support of the offensive coordinator. He's got the support of the front office. It seems like Trask is the guy moving forward. So for better or for worse, whether you like it or not, that's kind of what it's like. Are you in agreement with me? Do you think that this endorsement by the front office, in addition to Mr. Canales' endorsement, is it? Or do you think that maybe the Bucs still are kind of iffy on him and this is all just kind of smoke and mirrors? Zach, we'll start with you. Do you think it's solidified or do you think it's still up in the air?
I mean, I think that it's at this point right now solidified. I also think that he's a liar for saying he's excited. There's not a chance that he's excited to see Kyle Trask start for us. But realistically, I think that at this point in time, it's solidified that Kyle Trask is our starter. We don't know who's going to be on the team in 2 months. So for him to say, for us to be like, yep, it's solidified, Trask is a starter. I feel like that's not necessarily fair to say that yet, because what if we bring in a guy like, let's say, a cheap end, Baker Mayfield, I don't even know who else.
Yeah, Jacoby
Brissett. There we go. That was the name I was trying to think of. We bring in a guy like that and they outplay Kyle Trask. Well, then he's not going to be the starter. We're not ashamed to admit when we screw up on a draft pick, i.e., Roberto Aguayo,
sure.
or Jameis Winston. We weren't too ashamed to admit that we screwed up. We did stick with Winston for a very long time, which was uncomfortable, but it happened. So right. I don't think that we're attached to him at this point. It's just he's the only quarterback on the roster, so you can't go out and say negative things about the only quarterback on your roster.
That's a great way of looking at it. You can't go out on the only dude that's going to suit up under center. Absolutely. Musab, how about you? Do you think like Zach, it's kind of solidified, but also leaving it open, or do you think more like, all right, this is done, or how are you feeling about it?
If it's solidified, then so be it. I'm not gonna, keep on, nagging or whatever. We got the guy in the second round. It's finally for him to show up. So the guy's barely had any experience, and that is my biggest issue. We were talking about Keyshawn Vaughn, gentlemen. I think Kyle Trask is the Keyshawn Vaughn of quarterbacks.
That's a perfect example, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Clearly, if he had something in him, he would have been a hard second stringer. We would have never even thought about throwing Blaine Gabbert in when, Brady needed a break, but it was always Gabbert. You know what I'm saying? Imagine, picking a guy second round and then, the last couple of years we're just still running with Gabbert as second string, So it's only because we had Brady or something, So that's why I'm saying, listen, it's fine. If this is what the organization wants to do, then so be it. I think we might have to face some consequences. This is a huge development year. I don't think that we're going to go 0-17, but I will tell you this. Who knows? Who knows? Honestly, just because I mean, I know seriously, we're not going to go 0-17, but no, we'll win a couple games. But still,
Knock on wood, real quick.
yeah. Well, for me, right now, I was actually thinking a little hot take for me is with Marcus Mariota, being released by the Falcons. I don't know. I wouldn't mind taking him, but then again, I don't know how exactly works out with the whole front office with the money and all that mumbo jumbo.
He would be real cheap.
For sure.
Yeah, he ought to be cheap if you're being let go by the Falcons.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so yeah, you ought to be cheap, but yeah, he kind of falls in that category. It's not something I'm super kind of like, we should do this, but whatever happens, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Kyle Trask just better strap up. If this is what's gonna happen for our organization, that's fine. I believe in Kyle Trask only because I have no option not to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I was one of those guys who was saying all aboard the Trask train. So you know what, man? Maybe the Trask train has arrived. All right.
Oh man. All aboard the Trask train.
Fingers
crossed, gentlemen, and it's time to buckle up and see how this ride goes.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, like you said, you have no other choice but to try to believe in him, and that's kind of seems to be the attitude of the front office at this point. But yeah, Marcus Mariota is certainly an interesting guy to bring up. He's certainly a different type of quarterback than Kyle Trask is, much more mobile. Definitely could be kind of an interesting, maybe change of pace kind of guy, I guess. But he would definitely bring a lot more speed to the position than Kyle Trask has.
Speed and experience.
For sure. Speed and a lot of experience. Absolutely. And he's dealt with, he was a second overall pick, behind Jameis. His career has not turned out to be as successful as he'd probably like. So he can certainly impart some wisdom just as, hey, I've dealt with this crap, all the pressure and all that stuff. He's dealt with it. So that would certainly also be a very good point, kind of a mentorship kind of thing. So yeah, I mean that's kind of all we got this week. We covered the Wirfs, we covered the Donovan Smith, Leonard Fournette, and of course we had to bring up the quarterback because we got to bring up the quarterback every week because that's just how it's got to be. But yeah, I mean we're moving forward. We're every day we're closer to the start of next season and the NFL draft, and it's a rough off season, especially for the Bucs, and it's never easy with the NFL, especially in this time, just because it's so there's no slow news, nothing really going on. No one wants to watch NFL live. It's all just big blur. But regardless, we want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Without y'all, we're just talking to ourselves. So thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you're listening in. Also follow us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's at RBLR Sports. Check us out. We're posting stuff not just about the Bucs, but Rays, Lightning, Rowdy as well. Feel free to check us out there. Thank you again for tuning in. For me and my co-host, thank you so much. We can't thank you enough. And feel free to check out that shop. Cannon is the promo code CNNONS. 10% off. And as always, go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.